Dear aspiring dev, have you ever heard the phrase, a picture tells 1,000 words? Well, the same can be said for everything that you've learned on your developer journey. Your portfolio is a great way to not only tell prospective employers and clients what you know, but also show them exactly what you can do. Hi, I'm Bree and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. And if this is your first time seeing me, hi, I'm Bree and welcome to Dear Aspiring Dev. This is the series where I take new and aspiring developers on the journey from having the dream to getting a job. This is the 6th video in the Dear Aspiring Dev series, and if you haven't seen the other 5, I will go ahead and leave a link somewhere up here so you can see the whole playlist and watch the past videos. So if you're a developer, no matter what part of your coding journey you're on, I would totally start thinking about creating a portfolio for yourself if you haven't already. Portfolios are a great way to show prospective employers and clients exactly what you know and also express a little bit of your personality as well. They also serve as a great talking point and a way to sort of break into the work that you've done. So today we'll discuss what a developer portfolio is and how you could benefit from having one. We'll also talk about what kind of projects you should include in your portfolio, as well as some of the content that you should include in your portfolio as well. And then we'll round things off with a production checklist. So if you don't have a portfolio already, don't feel bad. It's okay, I promise. I've been a developer for over 2 years now, and I'm just getting around to redoing mine. So you're all good. So what is a developer portfolio and why is it important? A portfolio in a generic sense is really just a collection of your work. If you think about designers and artists, they typically have a physical or a digital collection of their work that they can show anybody who would be willing to purchase a commission from them, and really the same goes for developers as well. So employers and prospective clients can take a look at your GitHub repo, but if they're not somebody that's overly technical, that's not really going to be very helpful for them. Think of your portfolio as a live and interactive version of your resume that showcases your personality and highlights what you're good at. Anyone who's viewing your portfolio can see who you are as a person, what kind of experience you have, what your expertise is, what kind of projects you've worked on in the past, and also what your development style is like. So the great thing about portfolios is, in my mind, they are sort of the opposite of a resume. Resumes can seem very structured and super impersonal because a lot of times your resume is being put through an ATS or applicant tracking system where an algorithm is the first system to take a look at your resume and not a human. If somebody's getting to your portfolio site, they are somebody who is interested in your work and would like to know more about who you are. So a portfolio is a great way to make that first connection and a good first impression. So why is a portfolio important? Just like I said at the top of the video, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it is worth so much more to be able to show someone that you know a skill set rather than just saying, I know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I've used React. It means a lot more if you can physically show somebody something that you created with these technologies. And more importantly, the projects that you put on your portfolio are really great during interviews, not because the person who's interviewing you is going to be looking at your portfolio while they're physically talking to you, but you'll be able to relate whatever they're asking you about technology to each of the projects that you have completed. This is actually one of my favorite tips for new developers because it makes the interview process just a little bit easier. Instead of answering a question about how something works, you can say, oh, I use this technology and I use this strategy or this algorithm at this point in my project. And you can make that connection between what you've actually worked on and what the technology is. Showcasing your projects through your portfolio is also really great if you don't have any previous work experience because it shows just because you don't have any formal work experience, it doesn't mean that you haven't put in the work. As you're learning to code, creating your own projects or taking projects from tutorials that you created one step further is one of the best ways to learn, in my opinion. If you're not already doing this, I would highly suggest it. Put exactly what you're learning into action. Coding on your own, facing errors, having to do your own research to be able to solve the problems, those lessons are going to stick with you more than something that you might have learned for 2 minutes in a tutorial. So if you have been creating projects as you've been learning or just on your own, how do you decide which projects make it into your portfolio and which ones don't? So I've sort of split these up into a few different categories, and first let's talk about the projects that I would add to your portfolio. So the first section I have is passion projects. And passion projects are typically projects that people are, of course, passionate about, but they're typically projects that people have worked on for a good amount of time and that are very personal and close to them. The reason that this is at the top of my list is because when you are talking about something that you have worked on for a long time and that you really enjoy and you're passionate about, people can feel that and it radiates, and you being excited about something and the other person hearing how excited you are, or even like hearing the smile on your face over the phone or anything like that, I think it would make them more excited to, hear more about what you're doing because they can tell that you're already excited. So the next category I have is projects where you learned a lot. Adding projects where you learned a lot are super important because they show that you can learn and adapt to new technologies as needed, which is something that's basically essential if you want to work in this industry because it moves so quickly. If you have a project where you implemented like a complex algorithm or maybe like a full stack application that has like a lot of moving pieces, I would definitely complete it. It shows that you have in-depth knowledge about the technologies that you're using, and it shows that you're very versatile as well. This is not the time to be shy. If you have it, flex it. And my next category is projects that align with what you're applying for. So if you're applying to a company to be an iOS developer, but you have experience mostly as a web developer, I would totally prioritize your iOS projects that you've been working on first. I would still include the web development projects, but I would put them sort of after your iOS projects. If you're going to be applying for something that's iOS, you want to show that you have experience and have created these iOS projects, but having the web development projects on your portfolio shows that you're very flexible and you have a wide skill range as well. So let's talk about things you should leave off of your portfolio. So the first one is direct copies of projects that you created during tutorials. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with including a project from a tutorial on your portfolio as long as you have changed it or made it your own in some way, fashion, or form. So for instance, if anybody has taken Colt Steele's web developer bootcamp that is on Udemy, one of the projects in there is an RGB color game. So that's something that I'm building now, but I'm taking it one step further by adding different levels and by adding different game modes as well. That way I can include it on my portfolio and it's not the exact same as what he put in the class. Another note here, hiring managers for teams often probably see a lot of resumes, and there are a lot of larger tutorials out there that a lot of people do. So it's likely that if you're not changing anything from the project that you did in a tutorial, it's going to be the same as somebody else's. For instance, if somebody's going to be looking at my portfolio, they may have seen the color game, but they haven't seen it the way that I've created it and with the features that I've implemented. So they know the basis, but they're going to be surprised, hopefully, by the features that I've created. The next one is incomplete projects. I'm sure this one sounds like a little bit obvious, but make sure that your projects are in a working state before you add them to your portfolio. And when I'm saying incomplete, I mean incomplete in the sense that there are errors or there's functionality that has not been completed yet and doesn't fully work. I'm not talking about like if you've been working on a project for a second and you're going to be adding new features on top of what's already working. I'm just talking about like broken code. As long as your project is in a usable state, you're fine. So the next type of project you probably shouldn't add to your portfolio is a project with code that you cannot explain and you don't understand. This one probably sounds a little self-explanatory as well, but it happens. We've all used and probably copied code from Stack Overflow before, but my general rule of thumb is to understand what the code is doing at least before I copy it into my project. It would be very unfortunate for somebody to be reviewing a project that you did and maybe come across a question about your code and you can't answer it because you have absolutely no clue what it does. You should always be able to at least explain it. If you can't explain it, don't add it. So let's talk about the look and feel of your portfolio and maybe some of the contents that you should add to it. So like I said before, I love portfolios because they are a way to express yourself and your personality. You're not restricted to a certain format that has to be optimized for an ATS. And basically, as long as your portfolio is readable, you can do like whatever design and whatever you want with it. So your personal portfolio, I would say, is a large part of your personal brand. And if you haven't fully developed a personal brand yet, that's okay. I think mine is sort of ever evolving and it changes as I change. Don't feel like you have to design your portfolio from scratch if that's not your jam. If you're not a designer, you don't have to worry about spending days or hours or months trying to figure out what the design of your portfolio should be, especially if the design of the portfolio is what's holding you back from being able to create it. Building a site from scratch is a large undertaking to begin with, so using a template that's already been tested on multiple devices that somebody else has already created, there's no problem with that. At least so you can go ahead and get your projects out there, and then when you are ready, if you ever want to, that is, you can go ahead and create one on your own. Or if you are into building sites and you have your own design or your own brand that you want your portfolio to coincide with, do that as well. That's sort of what I'm doing. I have this very specific design in mind, and it's something that I've been working on for a second, like tweaking the designs and the colors and making everything right, but that's just me. So regardless of the style of your portfolio, there are a few different sections that I would make sure that you have. So the first is basically like your intro, your landing page. This should tell viewers and visitors to your site exactly who you are and what you do. Sometimes it can include a photo of yourself, but if that's not something that you're comfortable with, feel free to go ahead and leave it off. The second is a skills and knowledge section. This is where you're going to talk all about the programming languages, the frameworks, the methodologies, everything that you know. And one trend that I've seen that maybe this is like an unpopular opinion, do not include progress bars or like progress gauges on your site for your skills. I think these actually do a lot more harm than they do good. For instance, when somebody has a progress bar next to a skill, like let's say HTML, and it's at 85%, are you telling me that you know 85% of HTML or that you're 85% confident with HTML? Either way, these values are subjective. We're never going to know 100% of any language or technology, I would say, because these technologies are ever evolving. But also, what you consider 85% knowledge in HTML might be exceeding somebody's 100%. So these values are all subjective, and don't put yourself in a box with these arbitrary values. The next section is your projects. So this is the bread and butter of your portfolio. This is a place to explain the projects that you worked on. If you have them hosted somewhere, provide links, demos, everything like that. You can go into as much or as little detail as you like. If you're looking for an amount of projects that you can add, I would say if they are larger in scale and a little bit more complex, I would add 3 to 5. And if the projects are a little bit smaller, I would say from 6 to 8. And always prioritize your best work. Make sure that your best work is going to be at the top. Even though someone's visiting your portfolio, it's not very likely that they're going to have time to sit and look through every single one of your projects. So you want to make sure that your best project is first. That way, when they're looking through your projects, they'll at least get to that one. And you're also going to want to have a contact section as well, of course, because you want people to be able to contact you. This section should include links to your GitHub profile, any other social medias that you might want to include if you haven't included them somewhere already on your page. Some people might choose to add their email and phone number directly. However, remember that you are putting your website on the internet for everybody to see, and you don't want to open yourself up to spam or anything malicious like that. So I would prefer a contact form unless you have like a dedicated phone number or like a dedicated email specifically for job inquiries. So I have a few tips to just wrap everything up and make sure that your portfolio is production ready. The first one is to make sure that all of your links are correct and make sure that they lead where you need them to lead. The second is to make sure that you don't have any errors on your site or in your projects. Something that a lot of people do when they look at projects is they right click and then do like inspect element in the browser to see if there are any errors that are in the console. If you have any errors, I would definitely clean them up. The next thing is to double check your spelling and grammar. This one sounds obvious, but I know sometimes it slips through the cracks. So the next thing is to have a friend, family, or a fellow dev take a look at your website, and if possible, have all of those groups of people take a look at your website. I think that they'll be able to pick out all kinds of different things. I know a lot of times I tend to look at things with a different lens than maybe like my sister or my mom would, just because I deal with websites on a daily basis and the way that I think about things is different. So if you have your portfolio and you're looking for places to host it, I would definitely take a look at GitHub Pages, Netlify, and also Heroku. These are all great options, and you can deploy your website straight from Git. They also have great documentation and guides to help you get up and going as well. So it's never too early to start thinking about your portfolio. While you can fill your portfolio with projects that took a few hours or a day to complete, I would strongly suggest taking your projects one step further. I think the projects that took days or maybe even a few weeks speak volumes to your skills and talent. So I hope that you all enjoyed this run through of portfolios. I actually would love to do a video where I talk about like actual projects that you can use on your portfolio, or maybe like some APIs that you can use to create your own projects. I think that's something that I'm going to do as well. In the next Dear Aspiring Dev video, we're going to sit down and talk about certifications. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time.